Hello again, and welcome back. It's time for another dose of heavy. Today I'd like to begin a series that'll focus on the detriments of pursuing efficiency as opposed to the benefits that we're constantly hearing about and probably don't need to hear anymore. Since the dawn of technology, man's been driven to find more and more efficient methods for performing all manner of tasks. Not surprisingly, it's considered common knowledge that efficiency and the pursuit of it are both noble and beneficial ventures. Now, when I talk about efficiency, what I'm talking about is the practice of performing the same task in less time or with less materials. From a business standpoint, it makes sense to reduce the amount of time and materials required to produce a product. The end result of reducing labor and materials costs is an increase in product output or reduced costs for making that product. Either results in greater profits. But let's examine this so-called sensible approach a little more closely. Let's take efficiency to its ultimate conclusion. I think we can agree that at some point, in the case of most if not all products and services, market saturation can be reached. Market saturation is when everyone that wants a product has that product. Market saturation results in reduced sales. Let's assume for a second that perfect efficiency were reached. Perfect efficiency would mean that the absolute minimum time possible is spent to create a product, and that the absolute minimum amount of materials required to create that product are used. If it isn't obvious to you yet, less time means less work available in the production of the product in question, and less materials means less work available to those who actually produce the raw materials required to make the product. Now, some might say that this isn't so. They might say that if less time is used to create a product, you can simply create more of that product. But that idealistic notion doesn't take market saturation into account. At some point, as production increases, the number of products created meets the maximum number of products required by customers. Now, there are two courses that I can see that a company might take when this happens. The first is to simply slow down production of the product until customer demand picks up again. This means laying off workers and buying less raw materials from the suppliers, who then also eventually have to lay off workers. The second approach is to create new customers, or to create new customer demand. This is usually achieved through marketing and results in customers buying more products than they actually need. Hopefully you can see that this means that either you end up with workers who have less money in their pockets, or you end up with customers who have less money in their pockets. And since those customers usually work to obtain their money, this also means workers who have less money in their pockets. Now, if this is true of perfect efficiency, then it's also true to a lesser degree of any steps towards greater efficiency. Now, that's not to say that people should try to take more time to do the same work. At some point, that would create higher prices as the supply failed to meet the demand. But what I am saying is that any measures toward efficiency are going to tend to put people out of work. Then what are they going to do? The answer should be obvious. They're going to become dependents of society, or they're going to starve to death. So when Joe's CEO is talking about these amazing machines his company is putting out that do twice the work in half the time, what he's really saying is that his company is in the business of putting people out of work. And he might respond by saying that he employs X number of people, and so his company creates jobs. But don't be fooled. If one of his company's machines replaces 10 people and his factory produces just 60 machines a day, he's putting 600 people out of work every single day that his company makes and sells these more efficient machines. Now you can do the math and see that in order for his company to be helping the employment situation, he'd have to be employing nearly 60,000 people at the end of just 3 months of making these machines, just to replace the jobs that his machines are destroying. Efficiency isn't necessarily always a bad thing, mind you. For instance, if you're living out in the wild and you find a way to do a task that burns 500 calories instead of 1,000 calories, your food supply is going to last longer. But those are only isolated examples, and in the vast majority of cases, whether exceptions can be found or not, efficiency puts people out of work. It amounts to the few members of society who manage industry sharing less with the vast majority in society who labor for industry. So if you happen to come across a great idea for saving the company some money that doesn't involve reducing waste, you're not helping anyone by making things more cost effective, and you're not helping anyone by making things more efficient. So think about it before you turn that idea in. Until the next dose of heavy, remember, there's somebody out here who loves you. I'll talk to you later.